Hi everyone and welcome back to chemistry. This is Mrs. Hutchinson and today we're going to continue our discussion about matter and change, but really talk about how to distinguish among matter given diagrams. Should be a very short video today. So, how to distinguish among elements, compounds, and mixture given basically diagrams. So what I want you to do is I want you to find the worksheet that contains diagrams that looks a little bit like these. What I did was I pulled these ones out to talk about them because I feel like they're very relevant. So looking at these, well, what is this even saying? So these diagrams represent elements, compounds, or mixtures. And it basically represents them at the atomic level. So what that means is we really have to figure out, well, what is an element? How is an element represented at an atomic level? So elements can be represented by a singular dot that is filled in, a singular dot that is not filled in, but then we also have these elements known as diatomic elements. So if we break down the word diatomic elements, that's what these are. Diatomic. So diatomic elements, the prefix di means two, atomic means of course atoms. So these diatomic elements, when we define them, it means that atoms, when they're in their smallest state, when they're elemental, they don't exist as singular atoms. They exist as atoms that are paired. And there are 7 of them. And you'll get to know them very well. So bromine, iodine, nitrogen, chlorine, hydrogen, oxygen, and fluorine. So you'll get to know all of them very well. But for our purposes, using these diagrams, how do we recognize if they're elements? Well, it's going to look like any of those. They could be large dots, if you will, or smaller ones. But that's how you would recognize if it is an element. If it's a compound, remember a compound is made up of multiple elements. So a compound can be made up like that, where we have 2 different elements. It could be like that, because they're 2 different elements, 2 different sizes. It could be like that. Or we could have something like that. There are many different ways that we can represent a compound. But what you want to look for would be 2 different elements, or 2 different shaped atoms. Now a mixture represents, it could be heterogeneous or homogeneous, but it's really kind of hard for us to classify that in terms of looking at these particular diagrams. But a mixture is simply made up of multiple elements, multiple compounds, or a combination of both. So let's just take a look at these and try and go through them. So A1, steak sauce. It's gloriously delicious. If you haven't tried it, go ahead and try it. But A1, if we take a look, we've got 2 different types of atoms. 2 different types of atoms means 2 different types of elements. So A1 is classified as a compound. How do we know it's a compound? Because all of these look the same. Yes, their orientation is different, but all of them are the same. So it could be something as simple as, well, NaCl, where the Na is the large circle and Cl is the little one. Okay, something like that. Taking a look at B2, we have 1 single type of atom. There are 2 of them there. However, remember, I told you that we have things known as diatomic elements. This is a diatomic element. How do we know? 1 type of atom and 1 type of atom only. Yes, they all look the same, so it might be deceiving that this is a compound as opposed to an element, But nope, that's why I discussed diatomic elements. So that's where it gets a little tricky. Taking a look at C3, we've got, well, an element there, an element there, and an element there. 3 different types of elements. So, since it's not consistent, not uniform throughout, it's not the same, it's not pure, this is a mixture. So what I want us to do is go through this worksheet and tell me what is an element, what is a compound, and what is a mixture based on these 3 examples. And we'll discuss these after the video.